I didn't give it much of a thought.
Yeah.
Just show up and just be yourself, you know?
Just show up and eat.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. I felt, plus the ice cream I had too.
Yeah, what flavor was it?
It's beer.
What?
You mean strawberry?
Strawberry.
Only girls like strawberry.
Well, my name is Ashley, and I do have long, and I do have long hair.
This is how you ordered the ice.
Yeah.
I'm Ashley. Can I have this airberry?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Ash Pearson. I play drums in Revocation, 3 Inches of Blood, and Zimmer's Hole, among other things. I am here in Frankfurt on a short layover before we fly to Australia, so I'm currently on a world tour. Very excited to be here.
Hi Ash, please tell me, why do we meet here in my living room and not on the road, maybe in the Netherlands or what have you?
Right. Well, why we haven't met on the road or in the Netherlands or what have you is because we just met for the first time a few days ago.
Not really meeting for the first time.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Because it was like a hangover bus situation.
Right, yeah,
Summer breeze, but really meeting, yeah.
Yeah, and actually talking. Yeah, I needed a place to play drums, and you were kind enough to let me come and jam at your jam spaces. As it turned out, you happened to be the guy from Drumtalk, which I was like, oh, no shit, I love that channel. So it was a cool coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. But why?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the interesting part? You have to answer that. Why are you here in Frankfurt, and why do you need a practice room?
So Revocation just finished up a tour of Europe, and we have about a week in Frankfurt before we fly to Australia. Why I need a practice space is I recently got a gig playing drums for Marty Friedman. So I'm going to, after Australia is done, I'm flying to Japan to meet him and his band and rehearse for some shows that we have. So it's just, right now it's just like a fill-in gig. He just asked me if I could do it, and I said yes, even though I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure. I think I can do it. So I needed a place to rehearse because, as soon as Australia's done, I basically have to go to Japan and kind of, get going really quickly. So I figured I would put some work in now so I wasn't cramming for the test a few days before, because I want to show up and do a really good job. So as of yet, I still haven't played any shows with him. So
how did he approach you? Through contacts, or were you sort of a recommendation for him, or did you saw some shows of you?
So actually, Marty Friedman and Revocation have a history together, because Dave Davidson from Revocation, who's a brilliant guitar player, attracted Marty's attention because Dave is like a progressive jazz metal guy, kind of like how Marty is as well. So Dave has written a song and sang on one of Marty's records, and then Marty also did a solo on a Revocation record as well on a song called "The Exaltation" off of the Great Is Our Sin record. Marty has a solo there. So I met Marty briefly at one of his shows a few years ago, and then briefly at NAMM. But then I was just in Japan in January, which is it's 2024 now. So in January, I met him for lunch, and a couple weeks later, he asked what are you doing at the end of April? I said, well, actually, I'm going to be in Japan with all my gear. He says, well, and so one thing led to another, and then he asked me if I would come and play a couple gigs with him. I graciously accepted, and I've just been like on the road with Revocation and then like learning his music. He already knows that I can play, I guess, just because of like he's heard like our records and stuff, and he's like, oh, you're the guy, you're playing all that stuff? Well, you can obviously play metal drums pretty good. And then so I've been sending him like demos of all his songs or whatever, which is like there's some ballads and stuff like that, and like funky kind of parts and prog parts and kind of poppy kind of parts or whatever. So I get a chance to show my range as well, which is I'm more than just a metal drummer inside a box, so it's that kind of gig is like actually a really good kind of showcase, I think, for my abilities. So I'm excited to do it. It's a good thing to do especially if it's something you would otherwise regret if you did turn it down. You know, I mean, you might not like the pressure of rising to that occasion, but what's worse, you know, trying and failing, or like, you know, looking 20 years down the road and saying like, oh man, why did I say no to that? Because I was nervous. I should have just done it, you know? Yeah.
What is your essence of drumming and the reason for that particular instrument and the means to be a professional musician? So what is the essence of it?
Well, I suppose self-expression is probably the main thing. I get something out of playing music. I get something out of playing drums. And I feel like I can take things that I've learned and share them with other people too. You can communicate ideas in really interesting ways by just going up there and playing, you know? And you can communicate emotions in really interesting ways too, playing music, which I've always liked. You know, drums and music has been able to say more than words ever could in many circumstances for me. I'm a drummer, kind of like no matter what, you know, that's, even if I had a 9-to-5 job, I would still, you know, I've come this far and I'm good enough at it that I would at least miss it if I couldn't go and, you know, take out aggression on my drums.
I mean, with essence, I meant, is it like you need the beat in your life because regardless of what you do, there's always a rhythm, or you need to punch things, or you are the director who wants to be like maybe in the back, but as soon as you're gone, everything falls apart. Like this is like,
right.
I was aiming at.
Yeah, I see. So all the things that you said are true, I would say. I always have music and beats going on in my head. So the drum set itself is a vehicle to express those things, to like get them out, even if you're just getting them out in a room by yourself. But I also feel like I need it to get out aggression and stuff like that, because sometimes, you know, I feel like it's a positive outlet in general. Music, playing an instrument, any form of self-expression, it's a good vehicle for people to get out things in their life, you know, both good and bad. So that's one of the things I love about drums. I always feel better after having played them. And I also like feeling like I'm a part of something bigger than myself as well, like playing with a group, you know, going up and playing a really good show and like creating an experience for other people, really fun, playing on records and committing something that will forever be something that outlives you. I also really enjoy that process and trying to get the best version of a song and being a really, you know, a contributing member, a supportive role to a bigger picture, I think is a wonderful thing. So
yeah, totally. But you're not necessarily like the music fair kind of drummer who goes there and presents the new pedal and plays for 2 hours just for an audience. You're rather with guys.
Yeah, I enjoy playing with people, and but I've done a bunch of drum clinics, maybe like 20 or something in my life. And I enjoy doing that. So I don't mind being the center of attention where I got to get up and go play drums and then talk to people. I'm actually I think I'm good at it because maybe I'm good at it because I enjoy it so much, but I feel like I can create a show or experience on my own, but just be like, hey, this is a band I played in. Here's a song from that band. Any questions out there? Oh, great question about somebody getting started, or maybe a tour story, or maybe a philosophical anecdote about drums, or whatever. There's a whole gamut of things that you can fill up an hour with if you just want to be the center of attention as a drummer. But yeah, going to trade shows and stuff like that, like staying up on all the products and everything like that maybe that's not as much my scene.
I used to enjoy going there, but I would never be the guy who is sitting up there and say, hey, look at me.
Would you ever do a drum clinic if you were asked to? Yeah.
Sure as I won't.
Yeah.
I'm not even soloing. I'm soloing if everybody leaves. Then
Right.
I will. But as soon as somebody is in the room, I'm sure as hell not going to play the drums.
Yeah.
Thomas Hawke is a little bit like that too. And we were both in his rehearsal space and we both not playing.
Yeah. I could see
Me
that.
for totally different reasons then.
I wouldn't want to play in front of him.
I eventually did. I played the beginning of Oh My Fucking God.
Oh yeah.
I messed it up totally. But
Yeah.
got fast feet. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Whatever.
What are the most valuable lessons and words of advice your drum teachers gave you?
Yeah. I would say I had three main teachers growing up, although I identify as being mostly a self-taught drummer. I'd say my three main teachers it was a guy named Peter Baroni, who I'm not sure nobody's probably heard of on this channel, but he's a Vancouver, just like session guy, great drummer, really positive person. Ryan Van Puderoyen from Devin Townsend's group. I met him when I was 16, maybe about 22 years ago. And around that same time too, I met Mr. Gene Hoagland. And Gene was probably like my number one biggest drumming influence in my life. Not even necessarily because he's so good, but just because I identify with his attitude more than anything. I'd say the biggest ones that I learned were from him, and it's not because he showed me like, hey, this is a really cool lick or thing to do on the drums that will make you sound cool. It wasn't really anything to do with that. It was more so about being equipped mentally to be a good drummer, to prepare yourself for, what kind of person you want to present yourself as to others, and how you want to conduct yourself professionally. And I always appreciated that about what he said. He's about 19 years older than I am, and I met him when I was 16. So I've known him for a long time. And in those early years when I was kind of maybe the most like vulnerable to outside influence, I was hanging around him a lot in person because he was a Vancouver metal drummer. So I'm from Vancouver, Canada, for those who don't know. And Gene, although an American, lived in Vancouver for a good 10 or 12 years because Strapping a Lad was from Vancouver. Devin Townsend was from Vancouver. And so we'd see him all the time at metal shows, even small ones, local metal shows with just local bands playing. And everyone would be freaking out, like, oh my God, you see Gene's here or whatever. So he saw me play one time when I was 16 and was like, hey man, you're pretty good. I think you got some potential. You kind of remind me of me at that age or whatever he said, And so he sort of like took me under his wing a lot. And I spent a good amount of time around him. And again, like I said, a lot of what he taught me was not just like, hey, this lick will make you sound cool. It was like, hey, be nice to people. Always try and challenge yourself. Listen to music that's not metal. Try and play drum beats that aren't metal. Take your emotions and your influences and try and create something new that's outside of maybe what people expect of you. Keep an open mind. Try and be humble. All these things. These are all very valuable lessons. He helped me become equipped to be like my own player. Where as much as I like his drumming, I don't think I sound like him very much. He's like, hey, don't be a carbon copy of me. Be your own player, and these are some of the avenues in which you kind of create your own identity and persona. Probably the most valuable lesson I ever got.
First of all, I like your tasty fills and I like your solid grooves. Your playing is very precise, but what in your own eyes and ears are your greatest strengths?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the flaws you constantly work on or just have given up on bothering with anymore?
I think probably my biggest strength, as far as I can tell, I've heard this from a handful of different people, but I got a good groove or bounce to my playing. I think I have a fairly good dynamic range, and I think I have a fairly good rhythmic vocabulary that I kind of successfully integrate into the music that I play. Even if it's straight ahead thrash music, I think I have a good way of like kind of weaving and bobbing into asserting my influences without taking anything away from the music. So I think having an artistic sensibility like that is maybe a harder thing to achieve, because it's kind of a hard thing to teach in the first place. It's like, hey, this is how you be unique. Well, then if you teach somebody that, then they're, I don't know, it's that my playing has come from lots and lots of just self-discovery, I would say. And so therefore, I think maybe that's one of the more strong things about my playing, is that I'm somewhat unique to myself, I feel like, anyways. Like, depending on like what part of a song I'm playing or whatever, I'm like, okay, this kind of, the way I'm playing this cymbal groove right now is like, I want to play it the way that Thomas from Meshuggah would play, okay? This fill that has a flam, I'm going to play it like how Stuart Copeland would play it. You know, this blast beat, I'm going to play it like how Dave Whitty from Burnt by the Sun would play it. I like a lot of these little things in my playing I do in tribute to somebody else, but yet it's also, you know, it's an amalgamation of your influences that dictates your artistic choices. I feel like that sort of broader thinking pattern is maybe what makes me unique. But I suppose you'd have to ask other drummers what makes me good, you know? But I think, again, I think I'm just a tasty player, I guess, you know, I would say. But my weaknesses, yeah, I'd like to have more accuracy, but it's, you look at some of the spots on my toms and my snare and everything like that, it's not just a perfect quarter-sized circle. It's like there's fucking hits all over the place. So
they look basically like my toms, or what?
Yeah. So I would like to work on my accuracy. I'm still working on my speed, because I have to. You know, my comfortable speed zone is probably about 200 to 210 beats a minute, but I have to sometimes play 225 and 240 and everything like that. And that kind of takes me time to, you know, I have to work to maintain that. There's some other people out there who can do it in their sleep, but I feel like that's kind of where I struggle sometimes, is that upper band for me of playing fast. I would rather be able to play like a slow, solid shuffle that, you know, makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck, than play 300 beats a minute. You know, if I had to choose, I would choose the former. So when I practice, I practice things that I'm not good at, being like, you know, Latin patterns, jazz patterns, slow grooving, you know, trying to get my fills cleaner, all these things. And then kind of like playing fast and blast beats, and is kind of at the, you know, I don't worry about that so much until it's maybe time to get ready for a tour. And things that I'm like, maybe I've stopped trying to, you know, what I just gave up entirely on is like becoming an authentic Latin player, for example, or an authentic jazz player. I can play a lot of these patterns, but I feel like maybe you have to live jazz a lot more in order to be very, very good at it. Like if you want to get good at Cuban patterns, you should probably go live in Cuba and go learn from Cuban players and stuff like that. I'd say I just gave up on the idea of being like, oh, I'm going to be Art Blakey or something like that. You know, I'd rather just take elements from different styles of music and incorporate them into this like metal drummer that I've become. Metal drums, it's like, it gives me the most adrenaline and makes me feel the most alive too when I'm playing a really good show in front of a crowd with like, that's like super loud, and there's nothing really quite like it. So that's what I am. And that's, you know, and so like you said, that's where my heart beats. So
how do you approach the drum kit? What's your hierarchy like, and how does that reflect the way you set it up?
I try and pay attention to my body where it naturally kind of just sits, you know? So I guess getting a seat height would probably be a good place to start. I like to sit, you know, not 90 degrees or whatever, but just maybe like, you know, maybe my legs would be a little bit like this. And then my kicks, instead of them being the pedals being like straight, I kind of have them a little bit offset like this, just kind of naturally. That's where my feet fall. And I don't have my kick drums too far out ahead of me. I kind of like to sit on top of them a little bit more, on top of the pedals. And then the snare, I don't like to have it too flat or too much of an angle, kind of just like there's a little sweet spot where you can just do a rim shot. Shouldn't be too high or too low, because even if it's off by an inch, you can start to get elbow problems and everything.
Have you changed that setup? Because maybe in the early days you realized, it doesn't work.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that drummer doing that. Let's see. Ouch, doesn't work.
yeah. I guess you got to experiment, right? It's like there's always experimentation that happens with your setup, but it's usually been with like heights and just like maybe cymbal configurations. Nowadays, so then the toms, I kind of don't have them flat. I don't have them like Lombardo style, but I kind of have them just like, I don't know, 45 degrees or something like that. I try not to have too many things like, above my shoulder, because I don't, even if you like, if I had my ride out like this, for example, I mean, just hold your arm there for like a minute without playing anything, you're going to start to feel it here and everything like that. So I like to have kind of an ergonomic kind of approach to my setup. And cymbals too, I kind of have them up but close and kind of down, so I can just, play a groove. I don't want to have to reach too far to get something. But just anyways, my approach to setting up drums is, just whatever doesn't hurt you. If you're going to be up there playing for a solid hour, try not to have anything that you're going to be reaching out doing this for too long of a period of time, because it's going to hurt after a while, especially if you're doing 30 shows, on a tour, right?
I got this answer one time asking the drummer, hey, why are you setting up like this totally flat way of setting up the toms? Is it because of the sound when you hit it? Does it sound differently to you? He was like, no, folks can see me better.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about so many answers that, he's really checked it out. No.
Yeah. Well, partially that's true. I mean, I guess maybe that's something you need to think about sometimes. Some drummers do. Some drummers don't give a shit. They're just like, I'll play whatever feels best. But sometimes it's like, if it's a big gig and you want people to see you, maybe you got to move that crash from the center off to the side so people can see your face. So
finally be on some picture. Yeah. With the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What routines have you developed to prepare for two different situations? First of all, your band goes on tour. Mm-hmm. You got to get in shape. What is your routine there? Or there's a call for a totally different gig, like with Marty. Mm-hmm. How do you prepare for that? Probably two different approaches, or maybe not.
Yeah. My preparation before going out on tour it's mostly, I guess, just physical conditioning. Before I go out on a Revocation tour, I'll practice by myself before practicing with the guys, and I'll just run through everything just to make sure that all the fills and transitions, everything is still smooth, that I have no mental blocks.
How much time do you give yourself for that?
A day or two.
Just 2 days you
Maybe.
Get in your own zone.
Yeah.
And then you join the others for
for like 3 days or something. We practice maybe like 3 to 5 days before going out on a tour. Maybe like, I don't know, 4-hour days or something like that,
Not that much.
It's nothing too crazy, because in our case, we played all these songs so many times and everything. It's like there's tons of muscle memory. To me, preparation is mostly mental. That's going back to Gene Hoglan for a minute. That's something that he's always said and still says to this day, is that drumming is 90% mental, 10% physical. Now, those percentages might be a little bit different depending on the person. For me, it's usually a mental thing. Like for the Marty Friedman thing, the thing I'm most concerned about right now isn't whether or not I can play it. It's can I play it in my sleep? Can I know it like the back of my hand? And that's, I think, a confidence that will only probably come after playing a show or a couple shows, and then you really start to become familiar with the practicing of the material, the rehearsing of the material with the band, and the actual execution of it live. And then once you run that gamut and you have that sort of confidence, then from there, I think it's kind of a dialed in experience that's a lot easier for me to recreate. So I played so many shows with Revocation that in so many different circumstances and everything that I have a lot more confidence just stepping in and playing these shows and playing this material. So therefore, I'd say physical conditioning, put on a metronome and just play some blast beats and fills and stuff like that, and just try and get back into the shape of, playing loose, relaxed, but precise strokes and everything like that, and become refamiliar with that kind of protocol. And then I apply it to music that I know really well all of a sudden, and then it all comes together. There is a big element of sport to playing this kind of style of drumming for sure, but it's never like one or the other to me. Like I'll really engage in the physical aspect, but I'm always kind of like practicing and exercising in general anyways. So maybe that's why it's easier to kind of just jump into playing fast before going on a tour. But also I find sometimes it's not my muscles that are failing me. Sometimes it's my mind is out of step with the note values that I'm trying to play. It's like, how when they say, oh, it's playing fast isn't just a matter of like gritting your teeth and just like going as fast as you can. That's not what playing fast is. Like playing fast is having a good understanding of note values and the space between the notes that are happening, so you can play clean, even strokes. And like Jojo Mayer, for example, said in his Secret Weapons DVD or whatever, he said, playing fast, it's not so much how fast can you play, it's how fast can you hear. And that's something that will help me get faster, is being able to like, correctly perceive, how my body needs to move in order to achieve a certain result, as opposed to just, punishing my muscles to the point where, I'm, getting faster or bigger or whatever it is. I think there's multiple approaches to it. Part of that is the intellectual side, and then the physical side. They need to work together, right? So I try not to get too invested in one or the other. I try and do both and make sure it's a balanced approach.
Life on the road has a lot of fun times, but it's also very tough in several regards. Resting, your privacy, healthy food, and sports is difficult to maintain. And then there is the party mode that most drummers shouldn't be in all the time due to the physical demands of a metal show. So what is your way of dealing with all that while maybe everybody else is having the greatest time of their lives?
Right. Yeah. Well, people have fun in a multitude of ways. Some people's fun doesn't always include drinking and doing drugs, and that's just, I think people need to accept that as a reality. What do I care? I can still have fun with this person. My relationship with people isn't dependent on whether or not we like to drink or not. But everyone's got their routines being on the road, and it's funny to observe them. Mine has always been to get up and play the best show. That's the only reason I'm there. That's the only reason I flew halfway across the world, is to get up on stage and do a good job. It's not because I flew halfway across the world because I wanted to get drunk and throw up. I try to never lose sight of the fact that I'm here to work, and I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to do a good job. And any way that I can set myself up to do that. I don't drink or smoke or do anything before I play. I try and make sure I eat 3 meals a day. I'm trying to make sure I drink plenty of water. I try and make sure that I, do maybe some basic routines on my practice pad that I'm playing a little bit throughout the day, making sure my singles and my doubles and my paradiddles and all this stuff are all solid. I'll take, maybe a 20-minute nap before I start warming up. I learned that from Gene as well. He naps before he plays. It's like restarting your computer or something, or like, recharging your batteries, however you want to call it. So I do all these things to help set me up for success. And then if I make mistakes, that's me. I rest easy in the knowledge that it was me that made a mistake. It was me trying my best, but I made a mistake. But it's okay because like I did all the right things to try and do well. And you still make mistakes sometimes because you're human. It's just the nature of being alive, you know? I'd rather keep my eye on the ball. And, you know, in fact, that's provided me opportunities over the years too. You know, you can still be a fun guy and party and all this stuff and still be well on top of your physical and mental state and your vices too. Because I think if you can do that, then you'll probably, you know, continue to be successful in the future with playing music. But if you don't stay on top of those things, well, then you might end up in a rehab. You might end up with like a monkey on your back where it's like, you know, the music, the thing that you love so much, you can't do anymore because when you play music, that means that you're also doing cocaine or something. And that's not a good thing. You know, I don't want to, music is, and playing drums is sacred to me. So I don't want anything to come into that circle and ruin it. You know, so, you know, I'll have my fun and I'll take it too far, but I always make sure that I come back to a center and I recalibrate so I can continue to do this in the future and can continue to be professional and have a good reputation as well, you know?
Most musicians are writing music to first and foremost please themselves or maybe the bandmates. However, the more people love your music, you are just getting under the microscope of more and more people. How does that affect your way of doing things? Because then it's suddenly not your own anymore. You might say, yeah, I'm only writing music for me, but I don't think that's particularly totally true. If you have a huge audience, then you might think about, do they like that when I do that? Maybe I need this and that part here to make the show rolling, because you do play those songs for people in the end.
Right.
You may have the feeling of a responsibility for the right songs in the right order so that everybody can enjoy their music. And then it's not like saying, I'm just making music for myself.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Long question, short answer.
Yeah. Well, when I think about writing drum parts, I want to challenge and impress myself, and also, you know, challenge and impress the audience at the same time. You need to be aware that drums are a supportive instrument, so you can't just be doing a drum solo the entire time. You're going to step all over the riff or the song. You need to have well-developed musical sensibilities in order to, you know when you need to get out, know when to shine and when to take a step back because it's time for a guitar solo, it's time for a chorus. All these things are really useful for you to think about before you make the music and before you support the music. You know, it needs to be a sum of its parts. It's not just you, everything's not resting on you. You know, you can't be selfish like that. So these are the things I think about before I play and before I write the drum parts. People like it, you know, that's usually what I'm thinking first and foremost, because if people liked you in the first place, it's because you're being honest to yourself, you know. And if you deviate too far from that and you play what you think people are going to like, well, then it's kind of a losing game, because you're never going to be on like the right side of everybody's expectations. So you kind of just need to kind of do what's right by you, you know, without maybe deviating into, then you don't want to turn into something completely different. Just, I don't know, I would say just be honest with yourself and try and be a supportive role in a bigger picture that is playing with a band.
Music is communication. So if you play a song, it's rather reciting a poem word for word, if it's from your band, right? And or maybe the Marty Friedman thing. Maybe he gave you the exact notes or the exact program drums or whatever. Then it's kind of reciting. But you control the intonation and dynamics of that text. And improvising is not really common in the metal music, but can be done. When you listen carefully, anticipate, and share a taste and understanding with the musician you talk with. How does that work for you?
That one I like. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. You likened playing a song to reading a poem, and the or poem or a speech, and they all have their words that go in a particular order, and that is true. But when you read something like a speech or and whatnot, it depends on where you put the emphasis on which words can communicate a different feeling. So that's definitely one of the things that I really enjoy about music. That's one of the things I'll sometimes talk about at drum clinics is like you're learning beats, but you're also kind of collecting emotions from music that you like, and you're trying to portray an emotion through your instrument to somebody as well. So, I mean, I like metal a lot because it's so intense, and I like that intense emotion that comes from watching a good metal band play. There's kind of nothing else quite like it. So like when I play, if I'm playing like 3 Inches of Blood, Marty Friedman, Revocation, Zimmer's Hole, whatever bands I've ever played in, I first and foremost like listen to music on like how does it make me feel. I try and record that into my body first and foremost, and then when I get up there and play it back to an audience, I try and portray that back to them, how it made me feel in the first place to play a fill, or this part is kind of a waltz in 3, but it's also like very open and doomy kind of sounding. Well, then there's a certain kind of like feeling that I'm going to put into playing that, as opposed to playing like a super crisp kind of tight fill. So rather than kind of thinking about drums on an intellectual level in that sense, every time that I get up and do a performance, I try and balance that out with the human spirit. I try and balance that out with, portraying a feeling to people night after night, So when I go and do this Marty Friedman gig, he's got some old shit. He's got like his first Dragon's Kiss record or whatever with Dean Castronillo. Yeah. So like there's a song off of that. It's got its own kind of production and feeling and everything, and Dean's fills, and then there's his like Tokyo jukebox stuff. It's like got a completely different kind of aesthetic to the music, and I mean obviously he's played in Megadeth, so he's got his like thrash roots and everything, so there's a lot of things to choose from. So you can't just play it all one way, you got to be adaptable. And what does it mean to be adaptable? Well, it means that you need to be able to portray an emotion to do a song justice, and that's what I find to be most important. Is like how does this music make me feel, and how am I gonna make you feel that as well, So when I'm playing Revocation stuff or whatever it is, I'm always kind of approaching that on that like, okay, there's all sorts of intellectual things going on in terms of relaxing, playing note values, groupings, and all this stuff. But then at the end of the day, those are all tools in order to portray something that I feel. So I think that's probably the most important thing that I would like people to understand for themselves about playing music is like, don't just repeat like numbers on a chart. Make sure that there's some sort of a feeling attached to those things, because that's ultimately the most important element of playing music. Whether you don't even need to be good. Like I'd rather listen to Kurt Cobain play than certain shredders who are brilliant technicians, but still I'd sometimes rather listen to Kurt Cobain play guitar because he comes from a very, very honest place. I want something honest when I see it. It doesn't have to be high level, musicianship. Just as long as it's something that makes me feel something, well, then you've done your job as a musician, elicit emotions out of people. And, I think that's a wonderful thing. All right, this was Ash Pearson. Thanks for spending a bit of time with me here today. Thank you to Drumtalk for having me out. It's an honor to be on this channel. I was a big fan for a long time, and I was very humbled to be asked to come on. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.